Okay, my YouTube people, I'm back on the 85 Ironhead Sportster, and when I pressed the rear brake, it seemed like the caliper was hanging up like the front. So there's never a shortage of content. Anyhow, I'm going to take the rear caliper off, probably rebuild it, flush out the system, and rebuild the rear master cylinder. To get the caliper off, you need a 7/32 Allen socket or an Allen wrench. Now that I have both the Allen head bolts loose, I'm going to use a 3/8 tubing wrench and take the brake line off. Of course, I got a bucket to catch the oil. And I don't see any oil coming out, which is a good sign that it's plugged. Yeah, and I don't see much oil coming out at all, even when I'm collapsing the piston. Also, the brakes look to be pretty new, but they do have some goo on them. I have to clean them off. They look to be almost brand new. Now we'll take the master cylinder off. I want to show you this. I pumped the master cylinder some, and you can see all that rust that came out in it. Also, you can see it right there, the first drip. Definitely needs to be cleaned out. These Allen bolts are 1/4 inch. I'm going to loosen those, then loosen the brake line, and then take it off of the pedal. Again, the brake line comes off, it's 3/8. Okay, it just comes off the pin. You don't have to take the arm off the pedal. Okay, so now I want to take the caliper apart. And the way I do this is you take this snap ring out like that. And the dust boot should come off like that. And then you could see all that corrosion that's up behind the dust boot. I like to give it a little spray with the brake clean and get that corrosion off there. And now I'm going to get the piston out. You got to take this clip out of here like that. The tab goes in the little notch for the clip. And then I'm going to use a little air pressure to get the piston out. But you want to put some you want to put your brake pads in so that it doesn't come shooting out of there. You want the bleeder closed. Just going to put air right where the hose connects. Right now my compressor has about 40 pounds of air pressure. So I'm going to put the nozzle on here like this, and then we'll watch the piston. Okay, so 40 pounds is not enough. So what I wound up doing on this is putting the master cylinder and hose back on, and putting the caliper and the caliper hose back on. Now just pump the brakes and the piston should come out. Okay, so I'm going to have to bleed the brakes a little bit to get that piston to come out. Just know that when this comes out, oil's coming with it. And there it is. In all its oily glory. Now you can see this is why you got to change your fluid out. Look at that gook on the end of that. Now I'll clean it real good, get a rebuild kit, and put it back together. There it is there. If you look down in here, let's see, just all that gook. Of course, now I'll have to re-clean out the line with brake clean and air. Of course, we're going to pull these pins out, clean these and re-grease these. You can see that one's a little dry, but they are moving free. And pulling these out with the rubber boot makes me realize that when I did the front, I forgot to put the rubber boot back on, so I'm going to have to do that. The longer one goes in the bottom, which makes sense because it's got a longer bore and the top one's got a shorter one. Don't forget, when you get this stuff apart, cleanliness is the secret to success. So take your time and clean everything really good, and most likely that'll solve most of your problems along with a rebuild kit. So now we'll take the square O-ring out of the caliper. And I just get a pick it, and it comes right out, no problem. You can see there's just tons of goo behind it, along with around it. Comes out as a hard white crust. You can see it there. And that's what was holding it up from me being able to push it out with air. You can see it's even on this O-ring. This will have to be cleaned real good. I'll do that with brake clean off camera. Next, we'll disassemble the master cylinder. For that, I have one of these snap ring plier kits. It has the interchangeable bits. So you just come in here after this snap ring, like that. And I just give it a couple pushes in and out usually. And you can see right there how dirty this is. Next thing you do is you have to pick out that upside down cap. I'm going to hit it with some air right here. I'm going to hit it with some air on the bigger hole, not the tiny hole. Put a rag over it. You can see it pop that out. Next I pull this piece out to get an idea how much gook is in there. That's how much. Next is the spring. Yeah. So I'll clean it out off camera. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Doesn't cost you anything and it helps the channel out. I appreciate that. First thing I'm going to do to clear the line is blow very low pressure air into it. Not much pressure. I'm going to put it on here like this and give it a little blow. Now that I blew it out, I'm going to flush it out with brake clean. I'll just put the straw up in the end of the line and blow through, and you'll get to see it come out. The last thing I do is blow it out with some air again, and I have about 20 pounds of air on my compressor. Now that I blew it for about 20 seconds to one direction, I do like to blow it both directions. This ensures I get all the brake fluid out of the system and it's clear. The master cylinder rebuild kit is from Drag Specialties. It's DS 195042. The caliper rebuild kit is Drag Specialties DS 530473. And as always, I put all these part numbers in the description. So the rear caliper is identical to the front, and the kit comes with the square O-ring and the dust boot. And then when you put the dust boot in, you put this clip and it comes way down in here like that, way down there. And it clips, both of them clip down in this groove. There's a better shot of that groove. They both clip down in that groove. Don't forget to do this. You will need .5 brake fluid. I always use the Harley brand because it's the easiest to come by for me. The first thing I'm going to do is coat the square O-ring with a little bit of brake fluid. And I'm just going to slip that down in there. Next thing I'm going to do is coat the piston with a little bit of oil. You can see on this one, there's a little lip right here, and this outside lip catches it, and then the inside comes over the piston. It's pretty simple, like this. And then this sits over it, like this, and holds it onto that lip. You just want to make sure it's all the way down. And that's how that's held on. That's even easier than the other style. Next, I'm just going to start the bleeder in the hole. And then this will get installed, and I'll show you the install. Now we're going to install this kit into the master cylinder. Okay, what comes in this kit? Okay, before we put this back together, we want to put a little oil on the rubber parts. Help it all slide together. Pour a little of the oil down in the bore. Goes fat end of the spring with the plastic piece in it. And gets the rubber piece upside down. Open end goes in. Put the pusher on it along with the seal. Once you put it in, then the snap ring goes on to stop it from coming out. Okay, the way I do this, I get this started, get the snap ring over top of it. I give it a push down with a screwdriver like this. Like that, and in goes the snap ring, and then you can let off, and it works. So now we'll go install it on the bike, see what that looks like. Okay, so to get this on, we're going to put this up the end. I like to start the tubing before I start bolting it up, so I have that started. I like to get one bolt in. I always put blue Loctite on these bolts. And now the other one. Now I tighten it with a tubing wrench. Make sure it's free. Okay, now we'll go and put the caliper on before we put fluid in. Next thing we'll do is put our metal clips back in for the pads to ride on. Then we'll put our pads in. Now we have our rubber boots on, we'll put our pins in. Now our caliper slides over top of everything. Now start the brake tube. Back to the tubing wrench. Making sure it's good and tight. Now we'll tighten up the bolts. Okay, now we're going to get ready to bleed it. Now we get our Harley .5 and fill up the reservoir. Now I like to pump the pedal a few times. You can see the bubbles coming up from it. Now I like to put the rubber seal over it just so brake fluid doesn't come shooting out. Give it 3 pumps. Let some air out. 3 more pumps. Let the air out. And I'll do this until I start getting fluid. Okay, I've been pumping and I just got fluid for the first time. I got really good pedal. And you can see the fluid's coming through. There's also some air coming with it. I give it some taps with a rubber mallet. That way if there's any air bubbles in there, it'll get them up to the top. Keep going until you don't have any air. Okay. So the brakes are bled and I'm going to take it for a ride.